topic of this session is empowering reconnaissance vision in finding vulnerabilities. And the speaker here is someone truly special. He's a well-known thought leader in penetration testing and bug bounty field, and he's one of the top 50 hackers in the entire world, and he has been recognized by the Department of Defense and IBM. He's a Hall of Fame hacker, widely recognized for vulnerability and offensive cybersecurity researcher who discovered over 2,000 vulnerabilities and helped secure over 200 private, public, and government organizations worldwide. Let me invite on stage Mr. Ahmed Halabi, Managing Director at Resecurity from Lebanon.
Well, I guess I can start. So hello and welcome to my talk. My name is Ahmed Halabi. I'm sure that some of the bug bounty community or the ethical hackers heard about me before. So in this session, I'm gonna talk about reconnaissance, but we will talk more in depth. So who am I? Well, I started my journey in mid of 2019 as a security specialist, learning by my own. I'm a self-taught guy. So I took 5 months and I managed to be top hacker in the world for the US Department of Defense, hacking Pentagon, DARPA, and more. No need. So basically, I found more than 2,000 vulnerabilities, discovered from low to critical things, found vulnerabilities in more than 200 companies, and being ranked among the top 50 hackers in the world. And I'm also managing director of Resecurity. So in this session, we will talk about the concepts of reconnaissance, type of reconnaissance. We will talk about real examples, real scenarios, and also we will talk about how to automate the reconnaissance phase. So basically, reconnaissance, footprinting, information gathering, they are all same concepts or same words for the same purpose. So reconnaissance simply is the preparation phase. It is the first step before targeting the environment. So it is the preparation phase where the hackers or attackers try to get as much information as possible about a certain target in order to exploit the vulnerabilities. So basically, we have two types of reconnaissance. Passive one that allows you to acquire information about the target without interacting with it. So for example, let's say you want to hack a bank. We don't hack banks, but let's say we're doing penetration tests and we want to assess the security vulnerabilities and the security system of the bank. So basically, if you go search about this bank without interacting with the domain, this means that it is a passive reconnaissance. Let's say if you want to go physically and assess the surrounding of the bank, it's also a passive reconnaissance. But let's say you entered inside the bank, you talk to the receptionist, this is called active reconnaissance. So active reconnaissance simply means that anything that involves interaction between you and the target, for example, accessing their website, checking their requests, pinging the domain. So this is active reconnaissance. So as we said, well, what things the reconnaissance can help us with? So first of all, you will be able to know the security posture. And when you know exactly what is the target that you are targeting, you will be able to know what exactly you need to focus on. So you will reduce the focus area. You will, for example, if you want to target a hospital, different than targeting a bank. So for example, hospital, you will look for the medical records, for the patient data, for the hardware devices for the patients, different than banks, where you will be looking for the banking accounts, printers, and more. So, and then you will reduce the ability to identify the vulnerability scope, because actually, if you know what are you looking for example, I want to target web application, so probably they have domains, DNSs, or if I want to target mobile application, they may have API, they may have databases that store only the mobile stuff. So while knowing the main structure you want to target, you will be able to reduce the focus area, be able to identify the vulnerabilities you're looking for. For example, I want to target Linux. So I know that it may be using Apache, not IIS, for example. And of course, we will be able to draw the map of the network. So quickly, what things we can get from reconnaissance: identify domain names, internal domains, emails, IP addresses, notes, people data, maybe PII information, passwords, and much more information even inside the network if there is some open ports, services running, version numbers, softwares, updates, antiviruses, and much more. Well, actually, this is taken from the CEH, Certified Ethical Hacker course, the slide, if you know the version 9. So, bug bounty. All of this to reach to this slide. Me personally, I'm one of the guys who focus on reconnaissance and information disclosures. Most of my vulnerabilities are found because of this strategy. So I'm gonna focus on real examples of real vulnerabilities I already found before and showing you how I use the reconnaissance to find vulnerabilities. So talking about the strategy and methodology in deep dive inside the reconnaissance. So first is the search engine. We all use Google, we all use Bing, we all use Yahoo, but the thing is we are not capable of using them in the right way, because actually these search engines are more than simple search to ping data or to extract data. So Google, for example, invented something called Google Dorks, Google Hacking Database, that allows you to inquire certain queries in order to index certain results for your needs. For example, you can search for specific URL, specific parameter, specific file type, for example, specific endpoint, which will make it easier, because actually Google Dorks try to index the cache. So that's why they will be able to identify these parameters if being indexed and used inside the search engine. Here, one of the vulnerabilities I found before, so explaining how I was able to identify the vulnerability through Google search. So, finding hidden login endpoint exposing secret client ID. So I came across the subdomain, and as you can see, I found a message, no client ID found. So this message allowed me to predict that there is a parameter called the client ID. Otherwise, it will not poke this error. So I thought that it may be client ID or client underscore ID, and I told myself, why not searching on Google? So I used this Google Dork site, accounts.thedomain.com, meaning that I need to focus on this subdomain and search for any URL related to this subdomain that contains the parameter client ID. So while I did it here, I found on the third result that there is a parameter called the client ID, and when I accessed this URL, I found here that there is a client ID hashed, exposed, and I was able to obtain internal access using this client ID. So basically, in development, client ID is something public should be, or not sensitive, private. But here, they made the client ID like the secret ID, something sensitive. So it was cached and extracted. So I reported the vulnerability, they fixed it, and then I tried to find a bypass. Well, another thing in the reconnaissance is the Wayback Machine. So basically, what is Wayback is simply going back in history, checking what is cached inside the domains, what the directories, subdirectories, endpoints were used before, but they removed, but still cached, and checking if there is valuable information, sensitive data inside. So there is a tool called Wayback URLs we all use inside Linux, or we can download it as well from GitHub. And also there is a website called Wayback Machine that you can use as well. So I used this technique to try to bypass my old vulnerability. And you can see here that I was searching for the client ID as well, and I used this command. So I echo that subdomain, I chain it with the wayback URLs command, and I look for only the results that have a client ID parameter. And, oh, sorry, here. I was able to identify some endpoints that they were not identified by Google search or Google Docs. And I was able to identify the client ID and report it back again, got a new bounty, and also they made another fix. So something to learn from here is the ability of identifying the same vulnerability, but via different techniques, different methods to identify same vulnerability. Open source intelligence. Well, I work in intelligence, close intelligence, not open source, but open source for bug bounty is very important. Shodan, Census, Zoomai, security trails, all of these tools or search engines are very important. So what Shodan basically does is simply it scans the whole internet, IP addresses, ranges, networks, devices, and identify any default credentials, any bad configurations, and index them in their search engine. So I'm gonna talk more about this because I have a couple of examples. Let me just mention all the techniques. Company search. So let's say I wanna target university, for example. So one of the techniques to understand the structure of the university is to search about their domain, their infrastructure, where are they, their employees, their students, their teachers, and understand everything about them. Because actually, if you draw all this roadmap, all this graph, you will be able to get valuable information. Well, let's say I want to target software development company. So I go look for the developers. Maybe I can find a leaked code on GitHub by mistake that the developer missed to remove. And I can use it to chain a couple of vulnerabilities. And we will talk about the chaining vulnerabilities and how I was able to chain a couple of strategies related to reconnaissance in order to identify a couple of vulnerabilities chained together to obtain higher impact. GitHub, we were talking about GitHub. So basically, a lot of my friends in bug bounty were able to find GitHub leaks, tokens, passwords, staging environment, and they were able to chain them inside via internal attacks. For example, let's say you found an RCE via credentials to staging environment. Well, you may pivot from the server after you access to the real environment, to the production one. So never underestimate the staging environment because you may use it to chain and infiltrate inside the network. IP addresses, credentials, secrets, employee data, subdomains, internal subdomains, maybe unknown domains as well, all can be identified from this particular, not only GitHub, GitLab, so any source of storing code, pastebin is, dangerous. The second vulnerability was not identified by me, but one of my friends. So basically, he was able to find the client ID and secret credentials leaked inside GitHub repository belonging to Google. So see, Google, important company, but still sometimes, because we are humans, so we make mistakes, and the good hackers or the smart hackers are the ones who hack the mindset, the mentality, not only the technology. Because we invented the technology, so being to manipulate the human mindset to track, and we all make mistakes. So being able to track the mistake, exploit it, this is the, and my work in threat intelligence is like this. So we usually track threat actors, we track hackers, and we try to identify all the relations, and we try to wait them until they make the mistake, then we extract everything. Same for bug bounty. You need to track the developer to track the change of the code, try to identify hidden endpoint, whatever, and try exploit it as well. So third vulnerability also was discovered by other friend of mine who was able to identify a token leaked inside a GitHub repository belonging to the internal asset of Snapchat. And you see, sometimes you get very good, bounty from it, 15K. Open ports, banner grabbing, enumeration. So we all know that one of the phases of network scanning is the information gathering and footprinting of the operating system, servers, wherever. So open ports, then banner grabbing, after the port scanning, service enumeration, and then trying to identify the version number of the service, check the version number. If it is updated, outdated, there is firewall, bypass firewall, and much more. So even in bug bounty, this is useful because, for example, I found a vulnerability, very easy vulnerability, just by port scanning, identifying SSH, finding that there is no rate limit protection. I was able to brute force the password. I was able to get RCE inside their server. So I found open port of 2222 that is running SSH. Some developers think that if they change the default port, SSH run usually on 22. So if they change the default port, they are secure. But the problem is when you scan for the whole ports and you identify the open port, and then you identify that there is no protection of checking the passwords, and then be able to access internally. JavaScript analysis, leaked tokens, details inside JavaScript files. So for the web hacking and mobile as well, for the ones who use APIs, JavaScript is very important. Actually, because it is not about finding secret code, finding confidential data leaked inside, but also ability to read the JavaScript, understand how the API works, and trying to find authorization bypasses or privilege escalations, broken access controls inside the API calls, and manipulate them through the request based. So some vulnerabilities identified from the JavaScript, so leaked database credentials in a JavaScript file, leaked Facebook token with an open redirect in JavaScript file, and much more. This is now we go to the active reconnaissance, dynamic analysis, and what I mean by dynamic analysis is simply analyzing the website, the domain, the structure of the application, interacting with the application, pinging, receiving, changing parameters, and much more. So Burp Suite, we all know Burp Suite, we all know other stuff. I'm not gonna go in these things. Also, dynamic analysis include checking the source code and checking the cookies, sessions, and more. Also, it includes extracting data, but here we're doing active extracting. So we're not going on the Wayback Machine, checking the URLs or the domains related to the target, but here we're trying to brute force, to discover content, to actively extract data. And this is where we come to the point of content discovery, where we are able to discover some hidden files, endpoints, directories, subdomains, and much more about the target. So, fuzzing. Fuzzing simply means that you are trying to inject some unexpected, random, maybe false positive parameters or values inside the parameters in order to understand the behavior of the application, in order to know the response. Maybe it will crash, maybe it will reply with an unexpected error, maybe it will reply with a specific response. So you're analyzing the response of the server, and by that you will be able to know how to target. Because we know that reconnaissance is the ability to identify the target or the application before you hit it. So for example, if it crashed, it means that they may have some problems in the backend, maybe on server is not much, supported or whatever, denial of service, or maybe if it's showing some errors, meaning that the developers are not able to handle the errors, so there is no exception handling, there is no, try catch this stuff, so you can try inject more. While brute force is different than fuzzing, because brute force actually, you know what you are targeting, what you are looking for. So you have hidden directory, you are collecting bunch of word lists and trying to identify if this directory is found or not. Files, wherever. Also, brute force is not about brute forcing directories, subdomains, endpoints, but also brute forcing passwords, tokens, hashes, and more. So this is just simple example of brute forcing a password. And this is a real example of a vulnerability I found inside a program on HackerOne. So secret key exposure in API config directory. So I came across a domain, and there is an API there, and I found that there is a config directory that exposes a value called login URL secret key that allowed me to use this key to internally log into the domain without the need of password. And how I did it? Because simply I brute forced the directory. So first you go to redacted.com, then I check JavaScript files, I find API, then I brute force the API directory, I find the config file. Another vulnerability, RCE, remote code execution, accessing the adminer database management. Also brute force as well. So remote services.thedomain.com, and then I try brute force, because when I accessed the domain, it was 404 response code, so not found. So I tried to brute force the directory, and I get /admin. /admin is showing now 403, forbidden, access denied. So I do also, so whenever you see 404, 403, don't stop, you brute force the other directory. Because actually it may allow you to, they may have misconfiguration that allows you to access one file from this directory. So after brute forcing, I found the adminer.php and allowed me to have this login page where I need to put the username, password, and the database type. Well, in this case, so I'm a self-taught guy. I don't rely on courses or whatever, but it doesn't mean that this is correct. But self-taught teaches you that you need to rely on the available sources, search engines, Google, wherever. So I started searching on Google about everything related to the admin, how it operates, how it works, the structure, the default credentials, how they use to change password, wherever. After reading a lot of articles, I guess it took me 4 hours, I was able to identify that after 2 hours, I was able to obtain successful internal access to their adminer database, and I was able to find the username and the password. What I did there, I went to their GitHub, program GitHub. I searched for everything. I used some word list generators that are capable of extracting data from the domains that the target use. So I generated my customized word list, and I was able to brute force it successfully. It is not easy process. So before Resecurity, I was working as a red teamer, offensive hacker. So we spent sometimes 8 months to 1 year for just one project. Our mission is to obtain RCE. So we spent sometimes 8 months on the same project in order to be able to access their internal domain or server. So sometimes projects take too much long time. Well, this is one of the projects I've worked on from my old work. So these are the methodologies that I use: static analysis, port scanning, open source intelligences, and content discovery. So basically, I was able to access to the company's private project and application source code. Okay, so long story short, I have their mobile application, static analysis, first reverse engineering, decompiling the APK, decrypting the JavaScript files, and then we reached to this stage. So we have this command with the regular expression. Actually, it allows you to extract all the IP addresses found in the source code. And you see I use Visual Studio Code for the ease of the search, and I was able to find an IP address. So, static analysis, source code review, I was able to identify an IP address with an open port and a directory. So, heading to the IP address, well, first I tried to port scan this IP address. And I tried port scanning, and you can see that they are using kind of restriction, protection, or firewall because I'm getting a lot of delays, and it needs like 2 hours in order to finish a scan. So this is not the right idea. So when you find yourself stuck at one method, you need to change it. You need to try different alternatives. So I used open source intelligence instead of the port scanning, and I was able to identify the essences at new port that is running GitLab, and it is 8100. And you can see in the status code it is 200, means that it is working. It's redirecting to the users /sign in. So I found this login page that somehow they missed to hide. Probably they've been working on the development phase. And we can see sign in, and there is a register. The thing is, so they have first problem, the port is Xcode publicly instead of being internally. Second problem, they allowed you to register. Although I tried registering, it was successful, but I didn't obtain the main privilege because they allow you to register as a random user. You don't have admin privilege. But I looked for the version number of the GitLab, and I was identifying vulnerabilities, CVEs related to this version number of GitLab, and I was able to identify a vulnerability that allows you to extract some user details that are registered inside this GitLab. I only needed the username from all of this. So I was able to, through this API call, /users, to identify the username, the state of this user, and his directory URL, and the name, of course. So I only needed the username because actually we're gonna use it in the username phase to sign in. So I used the username as root, and I tried the brute forcing now the password, and after brute forcing the password, I was able to be inside. How I brute force? Usually I don't do it randomly. Whenever you want to brute force a password, first of all, you need to go to the domain, check the company, review their GitLab, whatever. You review everything about them, make a customized word list, and then use it to brute force. And I was able to be inside the GitLab with the ability to review the whole source code. And then I was able to download the whole code, read inside, and change some vulnerabilities. But I forgot to mention them here. So, automating reconnaissance. This is the important phase. We all know that reconnaissance is like 60% of the real work, or 70% that will take some, lot of time. So ability to optimize it, automate it in a way that can help you optimize and save your time is very important. So what I did before when I was into bug bounty, and the reason how I became rank 1 in USDOD only, within 5 months is because I was able to automate the process of finding the vulnerabilities, reporting them directly to HackerOne without, bothering myself doing it manually. So I discovered couple of 0 days there. In USDOD, I found that they are found in a lot of, in their infrastructures, and I was able to automate the whole process, which allowed me to identify more than 1,000 valid vulnerabilities in the department there. So, how I did it? Simply find 0 day, replicate it in all the environments, you get rank 1. So it is kind work smart instead of working hard. This is, for example, one of my automation scripts that I did for the subdomain. Remember what I told you? Never rely on one tool, never rely on one methodology or a strategy. For every single thing, let's have minimum 3 different techniques and ways to do it. Subdomain discovery, I use Sublister, Asset Finder, Amass. Also, I use other tools. So what I did is I wrote an automation script that launches every single tool for subdomain discovery, and then remove the duplicate entries. You will get similar domains, for example, or similar subdomains, and then I check for the live domains. I check for only the resolving domains that points to the web protocols. And then I don't rely on the passive and active here. I also brute force the subdomains with my customized word list that I usually keep updating it. And then I check for the subdomains as well. Removing duplicates again, check for the subdomain takeover, and now you will have a very comprehensive list of unique subdomains that probably 90% of the bug bounty hunters will miss. So not only this, so I also developed this automation system to keep running 24/7 on a VPS server on a specific targets on HackerOne. So whenever there is a new domain release or new subdomain release, I get notified via my Slack channel, and I get to find the vulnerabilities quicker than anyone else. So this is one of my strategies that I developed like 2 years ago, I guess. So yes. You see, subdomain enumeration is simple part of the things that I do in order to find vulnerabilities. So we start from the roots, from the seeds, checking everything about the domain, because actually, if you know in bug bounty, let's say I want to target Google. Well, Google, they have a lot of acquisitions. So if you hack, for example, for Google, I was able to hack, there is like Google Maps, Waze, Maze, something like this. There is an application that also used for maps, and also acquired by Google. So if you hack this application, you report to Google, they will pay you for it. So identifying the acquisitions will enlarge your landscape in finding more vulnerabilities. Sony, for example, they have a lot of acquisitions, they have a lot of subsidiaries. So all of them are in scope. That's why you are able to find more vulnerabilities. So going after the roots, the seeds, checking everything about the domain, the company, targeting their employees, because if you found a secret or leaked password of an employee, reported it as an open source intelligence or a threat intelligence, you will also get paid, because it is actually related to his work. Then going after the usual procedures, subdomain discovery, sorting, filtering, checking live domains from the non ones. So if there is a domain that is not resolving, don't drop it, port scan it, because actually they may run UDP or whatever DNS is that is not related to the web protocols, and it may have something valuable as well. Smart city hacking, all of these, you can use them. You know, all the non-resolving domains, you can use them to hack OT devices as well. So services, and then we go after the subdomains. We go after the source code leakage, after also the endpoint matching, hidden information, content discovery, Wayback Machine, spidering, whatever. And there is some cool tool called the Nuclei. So Nuclei, I guess all of you, the bug bounty community, heard about it. But the powerful thing about a Nuclei is when you develop, customize the scripts that can work for you to identify specific vulnerabilities. So why developing a bash script for a certain attack if you can use the Nuclei template within simple line of codes to make it work or do the process for you? And you can automate the vulnerabilities using it, for example, and searching for extensions. And here, how you optimize the reconnaissance phase. For example, if there is an IIS server for Windows, why searching for Apache files? I only search for the IIS files, ASPX, wherever. And this is how you optimize. So you develop an automation system with a bit of AI, because actually artificial intelligence is not intelligence. You are the one who feeds the data. So you're making it intelligence. So when you develop this strategy and tell the machine what to do for you, you optimize it per the domain, per the asset, you will be able to make it more quicker as well. Extracting JavaScript files, analyzing them. So even from the JavaScript files, you can do a lot of stuff. Extract endpoints, extract secrets, match the APIs, and then try to replicate them in your customized request-based via any tool like Burp Suite. This is kind of the structure that I use to develop this system, because actually I wrote it. So you can do it however you want, but this was the server hosted online. These are my directories where the tools is stored, where the word list, and here the Go scripts, and also some bash scripts here, and how to activate them one by one. And then you will have my PC, and here from where I control everything. So my PC work as an input and output. So I send the information from here, and I get it go to the server, and it return back with the results, for example. Well, that's it. I leave it now if you have any questions.
Hello. Thank you. Like always, I think very nice talk. Just quick question about the acquisitions part, because I think it is an important aspect, especially in bug bounties. Because, for example, if you go to HackerOne, one of the bug bounty platforms, they will mention something that is in scope, like they will mention subdomains and so on. The acquisitions is a tricky part, and actually a lot of the bugs that you will find is from the acquisitions part. Not everyone will do it. So do you just Google search acquisitions, or do you use any APIs for that? Do you have any recommendations for a website, or how do you look for acquisitions?
Yes, so basically acquisitions, as Walid said, that it is a tricky thing, and if you just think how I can find more vulnerabilities and how I can get more money, so basically there are some APIs, there are some websites, some services that that they extract the acquisitions of certain domain or certain company and provide them to you. What I did basically is wrote a bash script file that goes on the domains that state the acquisitions, extract them, and then get them into my machine.
Thank you.
Hi, sir. So I'm Manawalan. And you showed me a slide on how you took a bug from GitLab. So you even mentioned something on the slide, how you bypass rate limiting. So can you explain something more about it?
Bypass what?
Rate limiting.
Yeah, right. So basically for rate limiting, there are a lot of techniques to bypass. You can see in the response, if you look for the rate limit cache, there is X rate limit something in the response. That is 50 or 30, and it keeps incrementing. Whenever you reach the limit, you get blocked. Yeah. So basically, this one cannot be bypassed by IP reputation or changing your IP or proxy or VPN or whatever. So, and they have this type of protection. So what I did is I studied the request timeline, the timestamp, the latency delay, and I checked how much time I need to send between each request, and I found a vulnerability in this, like, in this logic, which is if I send if I send 2 requests at the same time, we call it race condition. Okay. Yes. So if we do race condition, send two requests at the same time, wait half a second, send 1 request, wait 1 second, send 2 requests at the same time, it will bypass it. So it is set of tryings in order to identify how you can play with the server and bypass it.
Okay, so it was very much interesting, but can I refer any blog or something on which I can refer more about this, which you can?
Well, yes, I can try to refer some stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the speech. My name is Jaswin Janu. And now only I'm trying for hacking for just 1 year. Can you share the daily routine of yours, like when you are studying, like how you manage the time to study and identify the bugs and
Okay, I can tell you, but I don't recommend it. Yeah, because I studied the wrong way. So basically, I'm self-taught.
yeah.
Yes, I have CH, I have ECSA, Certified Security Analyst, but then it was after I studied. Yeah, so basically started in mid-2019, reading every article about a specific topic and then putting them under my own notes. And by that, for example, whenever I encounter any technology, anything, I just do research. Researching, trying to identify as much information as possible, then concluding everything into your own notes. This is how I did it. But it is not correct, so it will take a lot of time and a lot of dedication. What I recommend now is simply CH, ECSA, Port Swigger Academy, which our colleague showed before. So go to the RedTeam, Jaizal, RedTeam. So think about what Jaizal does is he checks like the modern technologies or modern, learning paths. He like check the best, put them all together, and give you the best resource. So no need for yourself to bother yourself. Go search here, there, and there. So you can directly go to the right path, right source. Just focus on learning instead of me focusing on searching, identifying the right information first, and then learning it. And then after you learn, sometimes you realize that you're learning in the wrong way. So you need to go back, check.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions?
So wonderful talk, sir. I have a question on how do you find the correct brute force list for every website, and how do you create, what tools do you use to create? I have tried using Tuk from TomNomNom, and I have tried several custom tools which I wrote from like scraping the website and using it as a word list, but how do you get such accuracies?
Yeah, TomNomNom, project discovery, these word lists are important, but the problem is they have a lot of noise. So you're not gonna brute force like 10,000 word inside, 10,000 requests, they're gonna block you. So the main, the important thing is to understand the domain you're targeting, what area they are in, what technology, identify the employees, study the employees, study the environment, and then make your own word list based on the facts that you were seeing from the reconnaissance phase. What I usually use is Sewell. I guess you know the word, the tool, Sewell, C-E-W-I-L. So it goes on the domains. It extracts the common words used inside the domain, and then I use my own script to remove the simple stuff like the main words, the formal words for blah, blah, blah. So I only focus on the keywords that the domain uses. Maybe it will be among them. Then I try to build the common, 1,000 or 10,000 leaked passwords that people use. Because, for example, for testing, you may put your name at 123, for example. I generate all of these, and then I test them. Yeah, it takes a lot of time. I had some internal accesses, took me 2, 3, 4 months. But with dedication, especially if you work for a project, you need to identify vulnerabilities. So yeah, it takes time, but in the end, you can break it.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions?
Thank you all.
Mr. Ahmed, can you please stay back for a moment?
Sure,
Sure. I was wondering, only the front benchers are asking questions. Anyone from the back benchers? Took me back to school. Nobody's representing. All right, here's one guy.
So I'm not the right guy to ask me certifications because I'm just self-taught.
Yeah, hi, my name is Shravan, and I had a question that AI is increasing in recent times. So do you think it's a boon or goon? Like, do you think AI will help in security? For example, Microsoft is launching artificial intelligence in its 365 applications. So do you think with help of artificial intelligence, it may collect data such as cyber attacks and improve the defense mechanism? Or will AI be used as an attacking method from hackers? So what is your view on this?
Yeah, believe me, AI is full of useless talks because when you dive deep in the code, you analyze the behavior, you will see that the humans are the one who can, control everything. So basically, I work in the threat intelligence, and I've seen malwares are able to bypass the most powerful protections, antiviruses, EDRs, firewalls in the world. Thing is because when you track the technology, when you try to analyze the malware or try to analyze the technology, you will not be able to make it 100%. So what we do is usually we go after the threat actors. We go after the developers of these malwares, and we try to obtain the new 0 days released before, the new 0 days are developed before they are released. So AI may be useful, and you see they talk about a ChatGPT. I never used it because I can get information quicker while using Google Docs instead of ChatGPT. So it may be useful if you are developing automation system that will help you in bug bounty for reconnaissance, for example, as I did. But let's say it will do that job for you. It is a no answer. It won't.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sir, the firewall can't stop your response, time delay response.
This is the question?
Yes.
Okay. Firewall, yes, it can, but there is always evolving in technology. There is always evolving in threats, 0 days. So yes, for certain techniques, but no for other techniques. If they implement a protection, then you will see they will bypass it. Firewall is very good, but the problem is in playing in the, filtering these things, latency of the requests, as I did. So it is important, but the thing is, you cannot rely on firewall to protect your domain. For example, let's say XSS vulnerability. You all know about it, yeah? So, well, let's say you're brute forcing. So if you brute force and there is a firewall, it will block your requests. But what if I manage to bypass the firewall? So you should have a code implementation inside your application logic that allows the application to block the requests from their own if there is no firewall, or if the hacker was able to bypass firewall. So actually, my brother here will be speaking about the defensive side. I spoke about the offensive one. And all these vulnerabilities I showed, he will be showing you how to fix them. So, and not from firewall perspective, but the application code perspective. Because if you secure the code, it will be much better than rely on a third-party tool that it may be compromised.
Thank you, sir.